Hello again. Today we'll be talking about Thomas Jefferson's second term from 1804 to 1808. Here are the goals for the video. Make sure you can answer these questions by the time you're done watching. So Jefferson had just completed a highly successful first term in office, completing the Louisiana Purchase and also waging a quick and successful war against the Barbary pirates of North Africa. And so he was reelected, but he was in for some rough luck in the second term. And this included both domestic controversy, where his former vice president, Aaron Burr, goes a little bit crazy, and also foreign conflict, in which an expanding war between Britain and France threatened to draw the United States into a global conflict. In response to these things, Jefferson manages them fairly well, but they also distract him from other goals and hurt his popularity. Let's start with the domestic problems, which more or less all stem from Mr. Aaron Burr, who ends up being both a murderer and a traitor. So a lot of people consider Aaron Burr to be a frustrated founding father. He played a very important role early on in the political history of the United States. And he was a very important leader of the state of New York. And there, among other things, he helped to make sure that New York's votes went to Jefferson, and he helped Jefferson win the White House that way. In return for Burr's help in winning the state of New York, Jefferson rewards him by giving him the vice presidency. But at the beginning of Jefferson's second term, Aaron Burr's political fortunes begin to decline when Jefferson decides to dismiss Aaron Burr and pick a new vice president. This apparently makes Aaron Burr a little cranky. The first thing that he does that's a little bit odd is he starts to get involved with a plot to help New England secede from the rest of the United States. That is, he's going to help Massachusetts and Connecticut and Rhode Island to break away from the rest of the United States. As a result of this, and also for a couple other things, he gets into a big argument with Alexander Hamilton, who was the leading member of the Federalist Party. They exchange, in newspaper articles, some pretty harsh words with each other, and this ends up with them dueling each other. That is, they stand about 20 feet apart and shoot at each other with pistols. This is supposedly in order to preserve their honor as gentlemen, but I don't understand really how shooting guns at each other makes you more honorable. But regardless, they do it, and Aaron Burr kills Hamilton in the duel. And this more or less literally kills the Federalist Party, because Hamilton was the leading mind behind everything the Federalists were doing. But so dueling was illegal back then. You can't just go around shooting people that say bad things about you in the newspaper. So Aaron Burr takes off, and he tries, in a more or less desperate attempt, to take over the entire Louisiana Purchase by means of a military coup. As he's traveling down the Mississippi River to meet up with an army that he has organized, he is captured and he's tried for treason. Amazingly enough, though, he's not found guilty, and he's allowed to flee to Europe, where he spends the rest of his days trying to convince European monarchs to invade America. So not a particularly happy story for Mr. Aaron Burr. But so this is important, one, because it deals a fatal blow to the Federalist Party because they no longer have their main leader. And it also demonstrates the need for a strong central government to fight against the breakup of the Union. There were several different plots that threatened to break the United States up into a couple countries. And it was only through the strength of the federal government that these plots were prevented. On top of Aaron Burr, there was also a huge world war going on between Britain and France. America doesn't want anything to do with this war. Since the time of George Washington, their traditional stance has been to remain neutral. They don't want to get in a war. They just want to trade peacefully with both sides. Basically, they want to get rich while Britain and France kill each other. But this is not possible. The reason for this is that Britain, who is unable to win against France in a face-to-face fight, is trying to weaken France by using its powerful navy to block all of France's trade. They think by blocking all stuff from going into France that they can force France to surrender without actually having to beat them in a battle. America, though, keeps trying to trade with France, which is what the British don't want. So the British start capturing American ships and making them part of the British Navy. Sometimes they also force the American sailors who are on the American ships to serve in the British Navy. This is a practice known as impressment, which later will lead to the War of 1812. And it almost leads to war in 1807, when this is sort of coming to a head for the first time. And it seems like America is going to have to fight a war with Britain if it wants to be allowed to trade with France. So Jefferson's problem is, how can he protect American trade without getting into a war? His answer is the Embargo Act of 1807. What he does here is he decides that he's going to stop, for a small time, all American trade. That is, America is just going to stop trading with everybody. What he's thinking here is that if America refuses to trade with Britain, this will hurt Britain enough to force them to stop messing with US ships. Basically what Jefferson is saying to Britain is, either we can trade with everybody or we're not going to trade with anybody. You pick. Unfortunately for the United States, this strategy fails. Britain can sustain itself by trading with its other colonies, Canada, Australia, India, and so it doesn't need US trade. But the US economy is greatly injured by this cessation of trade. Basically, American farmers are growing tons and tons of stuff, but they don't have anybody to sell it to. So there's wheat and cotton just sitting in American port cities, rotting on the docks. Of course, this makes a lot of people really angry because they get their money by shipping stuff over to Europe. Within a couple years, Congress repeals the embargo, and Jefferson's presidency ends on this note of failure. This failure also sets the stage for the War of 1812 because Britain continues messing with American ships, and the peaceful resolution to this conflict did not work. So basically, America's last chance to protect their trading interests is to stand up for their rights and fight a war with the superpower, Great Britain. Here are the questions once again. Definitely read over these, maybe write them down and write the answer down. That'll help you remember the main points of the video that you just watched.